Hello puzzle fans, I'm Kinglink and today we're reviewing Baba Is You. Now I'll be honest, this video has actually been a little bit hard to make. You see, it's not that Baba Is You is a bad game, no, Baba Is You is fantastic, but it's a puzzle game. Now I'm going to be showing off some levels here. I'm starting with the tutorial level and playing with it, and then I'll show a couple more levels maybe later in the game. The fact is, though, I'm going to have to avoid solving most of these levels because really that's the whole point of a puzzle game. I will play with them and just show off some interesting tricks, but it's so much cooler to actually try to solve each one of these. And let me quickly explain what I'll be playing to start this video. Like I said, Baba Is You is a really great game. It's all about exploration and experimentation with a unique and solid system that I really haven't seen before. This is a game about rules. Now, it's not necessarily rules that you're going to have to follow as you'll see, but more rules that will take effect. The game starts with the tutorial screen, and what you're seeing is how it begins. Essentially, you have 4 rules. Baba Is You is the first rule. Now, we'll discuss Baba in a little bit. It's the white thing that's moving around, but essentially, that means Baba is the player, you. Flag is win. That's kind of obvious, but essentially, touch the flag and you win the level. Woohoo! Wall is stop, which means the wall is impenetrable. And finally, rock is push. That one's kind of obvious, but you can move the rock around as you want, and you've seen me do this already probably a couple times. Now, those are the rules as they're presented in the game. You'll also be seeing me move the words around, and that's really the key to Baba Is You. Basically, Baba Is You, the game at least, will always have you make all new rules, and the game will have to follow them. A couple tricks I have planned is the wall is you, and suddenly you will be the wall. I'll avoid the Beatles joke there where I refer to a friend named Russ. You can figure that one out. Similarly, you can pass through the wall, making the rock a win condition, and so on. The fact is, all of this can be done in the game, and by the end, you're going to be doing some really weird tricks to beat some of these levels. But the game is all about that. The rules are what matters. If you don't see wall is stop on the screen, for instance, you can actually pass through any wall. The rules of the game will always be 100% visible on the screen. Anything not seen on the screen doesn't exist. There's no implied rules with the game. To be honest, I think this is what makes Baba Is You stand out. The rules are visible and nothing is implied, so it's always clear what's going on in each level. Now, Baba Is You is great and strange in this way. Walls are passable unless it specifically says it's not. 90% of the levels you start with Baba, but you don't always have to remain as Baba. And speaking of that, well, let's address the Baba in the room. And by that, I mean the graphics, of course. The graphics are, well, let's be honest, odd. Now, this isn't the most beautiful game, obviously. It's not meant to be, but the thing is, well, words mean specific objects. What is Baba? Well, let's say it's a sheep, maybe, but look at the white object it refers to. Is that a sheep, a lamb, a bunny? I really don't know, but what's important is you learn that Baba means that thing. Wall means wall, hedge means hedge, rock is obvious, flag is obvious, and so on down the line. Now, there was a point in the game where the game throws fungus at you, and what is a fungus? Well, it was confusing to me until I realized that fungus meant mushroom, and in hindsight it's kind of obvious, but it's one of those things where you have to learn what the game means. The key thing, though, is understanding the terminology of the game and what objects each one refers to, and for the most part that's pretty easy. It doesn't actually get changed up over the course of the game. It's all about learning what the game is referring to, though, and fungus was just one of those words that confused me, but that's a rarity in the game. I mean, most of the words are really good on their own. I mean, bug, skull, tree, I think everyone understands what all of those words mean. But this is also literally the graphics of the game, and yeah, it's not a great looker. It's still really good, and I enjoy the style to it, especially the dancing letters that give the little life to these levels. But that's just my take on it. I mean, ultimately, just realize this game's not going to be amazing looking, but man, it does a lot with the graphics that it does have. Now, there's also not really a strong story here, and I'm okay with that. Baba Is You is a pure puzzle game, and that's the goal. There are different level sets, and I'll try to dive into a couple in the video, and the fact is, each one does have a theme. Well, the word might be forest, there's going to be trees in it. And in addition, there'll be a new theme on the puzzles. Maybe you'll start using the word on, for instance, in one of these sets. Maybe there's more conveyor belts in one area. Maybe there's a space theme or lava. But ultimately, everything is in service of the puzzles here and the gameplay that is designed for it. Now, let's get back to that gameplay, and really, the trick with Baba Is You is it's all about that wordplay. In fact, the name is grammatically wrong, as I'm sure most of you have realized, but it's how it works in the game. Baba Is You. Baba, the noun or the object that we've pointed out before, it's a verb, but kind of really it means set, and you. Action, ultimately, the final word can be anything. You can actually use any object in the game as the first word, and then you form the sentence by combining more words. There's a few tricks like makes and on and, but really every word has its own use, and it's pretty obvious once you get to them. Baba Is You is just a simple code for player, but as mentioned, you can even do stuff like Baba Is Wall, and that should be seen by now already on the screen, or Flag is Rock. You can change what objects are by just setting them to something else. The key with Baba Is You is it's all about understanding this rule system and playing with it as you play the game. And that's really what makes Baba Is You stand out because, while it has some minor limitations, You as Baba, for instance, is not correct. It accepts almost every input, good or bad, and dealing with those good and bad inputs are the key to so many puzzles. I actually like Baba Is You a lot. There's so many different puzzles here, and they're all inventive. I've shown some rooms here. Like I said, I'm trying not to solve any of them, so you can have your own chance to experience them, but I think you should see how different each room can be. This isn't a game where you solve the same puzzle 3 or 4 or 5 times in a row. In fact, if a puzzle looks the same, it's deceptive, and it usually is a clue that there's something different the second time around that's going to make it harder. That small change greatly increases the challenge, and it's also really fun to see how you can solve it a second time. But this brings us to kind of one of the problems I have with Baba Is You. Similar to a game that I reviewed at the end of last year, Steven's Sausage Roll, another great puzzle game, Baba Is You doesn't really help you solve puzzles. It has a great style where it limits interaction or focus, so you might only be able to touch 5 words, and then you have to work out what you could do with them to solve the first puzzle of a room. But overall, other than limited problem scope, which isn't always there, there's always a trick to most puzzles in the game, and you're going to have to figure those out. And staring at a puzzle only works part of the time. At least it was limited for me. Now, Baba Is You does a great job at giving you a ton of different paths that you can take on the map screen, as well as each area not requiring a full clear just to get to the next area so you can see more. You rarely only have one puzzle that you have to solve. Most routes actually have multiple options, unless it's teaching you an important term or skill, but a lot of Baba Is You is done through experimentation. That's going to be a problem perhaps, like if for some reason you think walls are non-passable, there's levels that you aren't going to be able to beat because you have to realize they are. In addition, there's some thinking that isn't always the clearest, and much of Baba Is You is the get it or don't idea. The sad part of Baba Is You is that if you don't get it, you might be stuck on the level. There's no way to get to the next level in the line. Now, that's a pretty much par for the course on puzzle games, but I kind of wish there was a way to say you skip the level even so you could see more content. But it is how it works here. There is no hint system in the game, admittedly, and part of me wants to say that's what a puzzle game is. But when you get stuck, and I have a few times, it's not the best experience. You can always go and look up how to do each puzzle online, but again, similar to Steven's Sausage Roll, that becomes a crutch and it's not very interesting to do it that way. I tend to lean on that type of crutch myself. I'm not everyone, of course, and if you can do that sparingly, great. I will say there are a few fantastic hint guides out there. That's the best way to play these games. There's a wonderful guide from Key of W, by the way, which, if I remember, I'll leave down in the description below. It's a blog, but it's focused only on hints. There's absolutely no solutions allowed, and it's one that I can recommend if you get stuck. The thing is, though, well, I don't really know what else to say. I've shown a number of these levels on the screen, and I'll be honest, I really love playing Baba Is You, and solving each of these puzzles is really fun to me. I haven't beat everything in the game, admittedly, but Baba Is You is about exploration. It's really fun to win a level, feeling that you've actually accomplished something or learned something new, and it's the journey, the understanding you gain of the puzzle that makes Baba Is You worth playing. It's a little similar to why I love the Zachtronics games, for instance. It's not the solution that's fun, it's the programming of it or reaching it that is interesting. Here, it's the puzzles and lateral thinking. And of course, sometimes the not so lateral thinking, but as a great puzzle game, the more I tell you about it, the more I might give away. And Baba Is You is a fantastic experience you should discover on your own. Now, if you want to tackle something a little different from your average puzzle game, check out Baba Is You. If you found what I've shown on the screen interesting, well, Baba Is You is probably for you, and I can recommend this to almost any puzzle game fan out there. It's one of the top puzzle games I've ever played. Now, admittedly, it's not for everyone, and it can be frustrating at times, but overall, Baba Is You is very solid. I give Baba Is You a 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, we're back to that score again, but it's hard not to give this game an above average score because it's so well done at every level. I'm heavily impressed by just the programming of the game, as well as the skill of the level creation and just the amount of really unique gameplay in just a single game, and I adore it. I really wanted to share this with other people. And that was Baba Is You, and we're again at the end of the video. Now, if you watched this whole thing, I appreciate it a lot, and if you want to be super awesome, consider subscribing. Thank you everyone who has subscribed, and I actually got a few review copies recently of recent games, and I'm doing a couple previews for them, but those review copies are definitely due to all of you out there who have subscribed to me, watched my videos, checked out my site, or just are fans. So thank you again if you've subscribed, whether you're new or if you have been all along. Until next time though, I'm Kinglink, and thank you all very much for watching.